What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to For the Record. I am your host, Ainsley Bowden, joined as always by my technical partner in crime, Carl Dwyer, the man himself, across the pond. How you doing, mate?
I'm good. I'm good. How's yourself? All good?
Yeah. Well, kind of.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Days
yeah,
eventful, right?
yeah. Family's good, gaming is good, so that's what we'll focus on, of course. So today we've got a good topic, and it's obviously hot at the moment, which is we're going to be talking about, and let me get all the words here. We're going to be talking about AMD's Fidelity FX Super Resolution 2.0, which from this point forward in this video will simply be FSR.
Thankfully.
So so we've been hearing about this for a while. It's obviously been out there for a while in kind of its 1.0 or early evolution form. But they just announced this week that Xbox has been working with AMD on this, and the big news, of course, is that this technology is now going to be supported in the Xbox GDK or General Development Kit for developers to start accessing for future Xbox games, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And the likes of these image reconstruction techniques have been been around for a while. But the good thing that Microsoft is doing here from the ground up is they're trying to adopt a standard,
Yeah.
a common approach to image reconstruction. And the reason you're hearing the likes of GDK being mentioned is that's the standard development platform across both the Xbox and the PC as well.
Right.
So efficiency, play, and development time, save costs, save money, develop once, get it right. It's a beautiful thing. So
Yeah, absolutely. And so, as you mentioned there, image reconstruction has been around for a long time. We've heard of checkerboarding for a long time, temporal reconstruction. You have DLSS out there, which we'll touch on a little later. Um, But in this sense, this is kind of AMD's evolution of their technology. And just to be clear for anyone listening, Carl and I talked about this prior, is we're going off of AMD's actual white paper here. We're not going off of speculation as to what it may do or anything else. We want to talk about the actual specifics from AMD directly about what this does. And in that case, Carl, I believe what they're quoting here from what you said is a 2.5 times is their target for asset reconstruction with this 2.0. Is that accurate?
that's right. Yeah. So the 2.5 times, 4K, 2.5 times
At
the
4K.
performance. Yeah, the differential that you can glean out of it at 4K. That's just as a bench. Now these things will improve over time as well because they'll
Sure.
get more efficient. They're not static. But you think about this from a longevity point of view. If you're able to manage your resources much more efficiently by not having to use a base resolution, which is a native 4K, you can half that or even more. You're saving cycles. You can use that elsewhere on the game if you want to spend a bit more focus on the likes of your ray tracing, if you want to add some more fidelity somewhere, or however you want to use that redundant resource, because you're freeing up them cycles because you're not having to push a higher base resolution. This could be a game changer in 18 months, 2 years. You're just going to see for the fidelity rocket, and
Yeah.
that's all that devs are looking for, is just more cycles to play with, to do more on screen for us, and gives them immersive decisions and immersive sort of experiences that we're craving these days.
Yeah, and we kind of talked about that a little bit when we talked about the Series X and PS5 hardware, right? It's just allocating those resources, and we've heard, excuse me, we've heard many times around what the resources it takes to create like a 4K image at 60 FPS, and whether or not we would ever see things at like 4K 120 FPS, which today is really more like 1080p and things of that nature, whereas what you're saying is that in theory, once we start to optimize properly for these technologies, essentially the developers, to really dumb this down for people like me, the the developers can create an image at, say, like a native 1080p, but the reconstruction, as advanced as it gets, will really look almost like a native 4K image. Yet they can use those additional resources saved in the image resolution, of course, to boost frame rate, right? So now you're playing a game that's technically, in quotes, 4K at 120 FPS, even though it's not really 4K, but you can't tell the difference.
Absolutely, that's it. So look, again, a low base resolution being able to treat that resolution with FSR, and then it's just looking more like a native 4K image, but without the cost.
Yeah.
Right. So if the performance will be there, when we're seeing things like 1080p at 120 frames a second, maybe we can push that up. Maybe we can put that 40 and 40p. Eventually, when this becomes more of a mature approach, maybe we'll get 4K, 120 frames, just the standard, you know?
Yeah.
So it really is a bit of a game changer. And what we're seeing from AMD is, right, we'll keep it open source. Anyone can use this. It can be used across a plethora of different cards. You can use it on an NVidia card. You know, it doesn't really matter. Go and take this open source technology. If you want to tweak it, use it. Be our guest. And we've seen Microsoft just go, Rick, we want this GDK. Yeah. You know, it will help us out. Brilliant. So they've been the first to jump on it, obviously, because the Xbox is one ecosystem, right? They build a game. You can play it on a PC. You can play it on an Xbox. Eventually, you're going to be able to play everything on your phone, tablet, whatever, with it being streaming. This is pretty good. This is where the head's at. They want to get ahead of the game with that.
Yeah.
But the likes of your Sonys and so on, they've got their own image reconstruction. FSR 2.0 will be compatible. I do not doubt that. I don't think they've said anything sort of publicly on that yet, but it's an AMD technology.
Yeah.
I cannot see any barrier to entry for the likes of Sony. But they've got their own sort of approach that they do in-house. But you know, I think my personal opinion is I'd like to see more of a standardization across across all development environments, because it makes it quicker, right? And when you've got cross-platform titles, these third-party titles, it just makes it easier to develop. It's probably going to be more cost-efficient, quicker. You know, they're all the gains, the benefits from it.
Yeah, and we talked earlier too, is that it extends really. You're talking now about consoles, which comparably to PC are a static platform, right? You're not modifying the hardware, and what this essentially does is it in reality can extend the life of those consoles, because you're, in theory, again, we've said it multiple times, freeing up resources and essentially, for lack of a better phrase, allowing those consoles to better utilize their power and seemingly carry their benefits more into the future over a course of a number of years.
Absolutely. And we didn't really have much of that in the PlayStation 3 360 era. We started to see it more in the PlayStation 4, Xbox One era, especially with checkerboard rendering starting to come in because of the Pro and the lack of the horsepower behind it. But now we're really starting to see that these approaches mature.
Yeah.
And they're thinking, right, do we have to push a really high base resolution? No. The order of the day now isn't about resolution. I think it's about your efficiencies on image quality with these reconstruction techniques.
Yeah.
And driving as much fidelity as you can with the resources that you've freed up, whether that's in RT, whether that's in physics, whether that's in higher asset quality or more open world, more dense open worlds. It's a bit of a game changer. Really.
Yeah, and we hear all the time about how ray tracing, how many resources it takes. It's a resource hog, essentially, ray tracing. And so this is yet another way. And just to be clear, if I have this right, basically the resources that you're freeing up, right? So if you're, again, just for ease of comparison, if you're displaying a native 1080p image versus a native 4K image, those compute cycles really are freed up to do whatever the developer chooses, right? They are not locked into anything specific. So if they want to focus on ray tracing, they can. If they want to focus on frame rate, they can. If they want to focus on world density, to your last message, they can. It's really just gives the developers more freedom to do more with their game.
Yeah. I mean, there's probably more concessions around ray tracing because there's specific hardware in these machines that's dedicated to. But the other things like your world density, all that good stuff, definitely you've got them free cycles. Go and play with it, and we'll probably see that start to really come to fruition 18 months, 2 years. What I want to see is then the likes of Microsoft do this really well. Sony, not so much. But looking back over the back catalog and thinking, right, where can we improve?
Yeah. That's where my head went immediately, because Cyberpunk, you mentioned it earlier, is on a top tier PC. I mean, top hardware. It's a staggering achievement, right? Staggering. Yeah. And as we all know all too well, on consoles, especially lower consoles, not so much. Now they've made the improvements on PS5 and Xbox Series X recently, which are admirable, of course. But my mind immediately goes to what else could they do as they start to use more of these technologies on the static platforms, console platforms.
You're the same wavelength as me. Where can you start dialing up? You know, the fidelity, everything else. And Microsoft seems to have a really good appreciation and understanding of, right, so we've got a catalog. We've probably got a team that looks through this and says, right, let's prioritize some stuff. Where can we go and make the best of just now? So can we go and have a look at these titles like Cyberpunk, like Deathloop? I mean, that's FSR 2.0, right? So yeah, I'd like to see the catalog, especially what's on Game Pass, maybe. That catalog to be treated with something like this and say, right, we've updated it for you free of charge. Go and fill your boots. Does it look better? Great. Go and capture some stuff, spread it all over Twitter because we're doing. But yeah, that's the thing. And the likes of Sony and well, Nintendo really don't have a resolution per se for things to work on. Although, it might, the Switch might benefit. Well, it would, but yeah. But Sony, I really think for a third-party dev, so their GM/NX, that compatibility layer they have.
Yeah,
I'd really like to see Sony do something with FSR 2.0 as well, just to make it, so you're not having to look at slight differences between consoles. They're just pretty much ubiquitous, although you might have a slightly higher base resolution on an Xbox Series X than you would have a PS5. But now when you're talking about image reconstruction, not really that matters.
Yeah.
Because you can't really tell unless you literally pause it. You want to count pixels.
Yeah, and zoom in, it's a waste of time. Yeah.
Some people will, because that's Twitter. But yeah, that's where it's going. But the evolution of this, I think this is where we can touch on DLSS.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so the evolution of this is that the likes of FSR 2.0 is a play on sort of the traditional image reconstruction, really advanced and taken and really dialed up to the max. That's what they've done with this. So it's nothing really, crazy new, but it's a really, really hard push on pushing that into the next level in terms of what you can do with the traditional, upscaling technology or upscaling approaches. But where things will get interesting in the future, and this is where I think about the consoles and what they really missed the trick on, really dialing up on, is the likes of AI, and that's where DLSS is a bit different. So just to touch on it briefly, because we don't want to go too much into this, but DLSS and the variance of that is different because that's artificial intelligence inferring detail in a screen. So looking at an apple and understanding what that apple would look like at a higher resolution at a certain angle.
Yeah.
For instance, a power cable on a mast at a certain distance. How does that look at half a kilometer away? If I'm putting myself in the scene, that's what AI does.
Yeah.
Now, a lot more steps behind that for DLSS that has to have some offline rendering done and offline work done to be able to do that. But the benefits are it can infer detail in a scene, whereas this is more, FSR 2.0 is more of the traditional upscaling, but really driving efficiencies in making it lightweight because it's a software solution.
Yeah.
Making it lightweight and making it really rapid and really impactful. But I think where we'll see real improvements over the years is that AI component. And that's where NVidia have got that DLSS view. Proprietary. Have you heard of that word before? Sony, by any chance? But yeah, the NVIDIA are sort of the Sony of graphics. I like to keep everything proprietary and exclusive.
Yeah, and it's hardware baked, right? As we discussed.
Yeah. Specific hardware cards dealing with that. Yeah.
Yeah, so good to point out because it's you see a lot of people throw these acronyms around, and you just need to be careful of directly comparing FSR with DLSS because they're not a one-to-one comparison. It's just from different companies. I think there's some assumptions out there that one's NVIDIA, one's AMD, and they're the same type of thing. And it's like, well, not really. That's what you're pointing out here. There are different approaches to trying to get to the similar end result, but one is more advanced than the other.
Yeah, and one is more AI driven. The other one may have some components of machine learning in it. I'm not sure. The deep sort of white paper into FSR 2.0, I've not had time to touch on that, but I'm assuming there's some learning in that, but it's not what you'll find in DLSS. You can't really directly compare the two.
Yeah, yeah, very fair. Well, man, I think that's a good overview of what to expect from FSR, the new implementation anyway for Xbox. As you kind of pointed out, 12, 18, 24 months, what have you in the future. And as we see the adoption of this kind of mature, and we see developers start to get grips with it and kind of figure out how they want to play around with these additional resources. It's looking, as always, even though this seems to happen every generation, but it's looking as always as the tail end of this generation with the PS5 and Xbox Series X as we know them now is going to be noticeably more advanced than the beginning of the generation, which it always should be, really. But these types of technologies really push that bar forward.
Yeah, and if anyone's watching from Bethesda, Starfield, hello, performance.
Yeah, we heard this could help your frame rate a little bit.
We're aware of your RPGs, so let's see if you can add some extra frames with this. But just conspiracy theory here. Coming to the latter end stages of development for Starfield, we need FSR in GDK. Maybe, but let's hope. Hey, yeah.
Hey, we'll see. We'll see. Well, thanks as always, man. Anything else you want to add before we head out for this one?
Oh no, as always, if you've got any topics that you want us to cover, if you want us to dive into any of the specific things around the current gen consoles, or even whatever when it comes to the old gen, retro, whatever, just give us a nod on the likes of Discord, and we'll discuss and see if we can build that in.
Yeah, absolutely. Leave a comment on this video if you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, we're happy to answer them. And as Carl just said, join the Season Gaming Discord. We have a tech chat over there. It's lively every day. A lot of great conversation. And we obviously go into, well, maybe not me, but Carl and others go into a lot more detail about certain topics over there. So please check it out. For now, that'll wrap us up for FSR 2.0. And for the record, we thank you for watching, as always, and supporting Season Gaming. And we'll see you next time. Peace.